Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk. This time, yet again, George McMillan III. George, welcome back. How you been?
It's so great to be here. I am doing great.
Man, I think it's a conspiracy. All of my guests are always great. It's
Yes,
it's like you guys are like pandering to me, like try to
it's
make me feel better.
it's positive mental attitude.
You definitely sound like you've got a positive mental attitude today. Um, Everybody who's
It's
new
full.
here, this is a comedy show. Nothing
Yes.
to do with reality. George, you wanna tell people what we're gonna be making jokes about today?
All right. The comedy routine today is going to sit around um, two things, like we were just discussing off air before we started this. If you want to know what's going on, the overarching model for what's going on in the West in domestic politics is a 7P plan. So I did a whole bunch of 7P plans for the trucker convoy, and then somebody wanted me to do some more a couple months ago. So I started working on explaining it different ways. And each of the different ways I explained it really gets a different nuance. Why are they doing this? It's aimed
Wait,
towards.
wait. What does the 7P stand for? For people who have no idea who you are or no idea what like we're gonna talk about today. What are just the 7Ps? What are they?
Okay, well, first of all, they need to go back and watch the old ones. Okay, two. Hey, that's what you used to say. That's what you used to say. Okay.
It's true. It's true. I'm
Go
gonna leave a
back and
link, but
okay, but I know you're testing me. It's a memory test to make sure I'm not like Biden. Okay,
you're at least you're
it's
not running for anything. Well, you
right,
do run, but not like you
right,
run exercise wise. Yeah.
right. So yeah, it's the. Let me start by explaining what the 7Ps are, because original Marxism was focused on two things: the working class, the proletariat, and then transition the West from a Christian capitalist patriarchal system to a socialist atheist socialist matriarchal system. It's the mirror opposite. All right, and that comes from, so everybody knows, we're going to go over it again in the 7Ps, which is very crucial. In Rousseau's discourse on inequality among men, he starts talking about, he attributes inequality to property rights. He says men use that to, to have power over other men. And then marital rights, he says men use that to subjugate women. So his two causes for inequality is property rights and marital rights. Since the Ten Commandments say, thou shalt not commit adultery and thou shalt not steal, the Ten Commandments are in the Abrahamic religion since Moses, right? So therefore, Rousseau's goal is to get rid of the Abrahamic religions, property rights, and marital rights. So that if you're getting rid of marital rights, you're getting rid of the Abrahamic patriarchal conception of the family, which is highly present in Judaism and Islam, but also in Christianity. So you're trying to get rid of that. So then if you're going to they want to move to spouses in common, serial monogamy, but then who raises the kids? Then it's like, well, if
The
the
state
father
does.
isn't there, yeah, if the father isn't going to raise the kids, then the state has to raise the kids, so that women are really marrying the state, as Jordan Peterson says. So
Uh,
in the history,
considering considering the topic, I have just the perfect meme. This came across my feed today. Just so we get the definitions right, we've got mother, which is X and X, and then we've got father, which is X and Y. And the father decides basically it's biology because it's changed since then. People might not remember
yeah,
what
oh yeah.
biology. Go on.
Well, it's yeah, it's a meme, but yeah, we're going to get into that too, because obviously evolutionary biology and evolutionary theory, post Darwinian evolutionary theory and post Watson and Crick evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology has that right, and they um, talk about innate drives being domain specific, because if people didn't have an innate will to live and an innate drive to pass on one's genes, then the species would have never evolved in the first place. They think hominids have been around on Earth for about 150,000 years. So if you had weak instinctual drives that had to be inculcated by the state for survival, well, how did man survive when there was no state, when there was no civilization, no culture, no written language? So the leftist theory of a domain general premise of weak instinctual drives does not explain why humans exist in the first place. So leftist thought has a domain general premise that doesn't account for Darwinian theory to evolve, and they reject religion also. So there is no foundational basis for leftism. So people need to understand that. But yet, Marxism wanted to go after class revolution and be for the working class and a matriarchy. Well, once they took over once the Bolshevik Revolution won, they had to actually start enacting Marxism and communism. So Gramsci and Georgy Lukács and those people started saying, well, how do we convert all the institutions to Marxism? And that's called cultural Marxism. So in that context, the 7 Ps are, they need to take over the university. Well, the first P is the professor P. The second, and there, that means all the educators, because if you start with the university, you want to start running, they're going to produce the teachers that are then going to teach the K through 12, and all the colleges and universities, the whole hierarchy. You want to capture the whole hierarchy in, 20 to 40 years, right? So then the prosecutor piece, okay, if you take over the university system, you're taking over the pre-law and the law schools. So you want to shift people away from Adam Smith's theory of of property rights and Montesquieu's idea that, whenever the government does something, it always backfires, unintended collateral consequences. So on the conservative side, they have a tremendous distrust in government. Leftism wanted to make government great. They wanted to have a utopian system. So the next one is the police P. The earliest communist revolutions were always put down by the military or the police. So they want to control all gun carriers because they don't want anybody they want to put all the gun carriers on their side and put down any Christian counter revolutions. So then the next one after that is the press. You want to control the narrative and tell everybody that, the socialist or communist programs are going along just great, just fantastic, and wipe out any negative news, because the Marxists feel like, well, programs, the transitions, you always have a structural change. Things always get bad before they get better. But once they make this transition, everything is going to be great. We're going to attain utopia. So we don't want anybody having negative news during this transitional phase. So every time their programs fail, they want to censor the news about it. So then you get the priestly P.
Before we go on to the priestly P, should I play that video that we've got of those UK?
Go over them in detail.
Go over all of them. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to rush through them to answer your question and tell people why, and then we're going to start applying it to given situations, and everything is going to start to make sense. So then the priest P is if you're trying to move people from an Abrahamic patriarchal system to a matriarchal system, then you have to start saying that, well, the traditional family unit is archaic and it's outdated, and you have to be accepting of other family forms, which is ultimately a single mother family is their ideal form of government. Then how do you change government to support that? Whereas in Christian capitalism, they want to improve the complementary aspects of male and female relationships, yes, you have psychological disorders in men and women, and they, of course, show up in a marriage, a good marriage or a bad one, among with some other factors also. So, but Christianity is like,
your camera lost focus. Wave your hand a bit in front of it, so that it autofocus. Like no, like put it up to the camera, because it's like focused on your laptop basically. Yeah. Now it's good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So anyway, the which P did I leave off on again? Yeah, okay, we're at the priestly P.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to switch to being tolerant of a matriarchy, but then they also have gone to where they want to be tolerant of they want to change and be tolerant of all pair bonding. So that's why you get the LGBT plus Q plus whatever. So they don't want to, if you're going to go away from the if you're going to go away from the patriarchy, if that's their goal is to kill that, ruin the concept of the father-led nuclear family, they want to ameliorate that or mitigate that or obliterate that by saying that all family forms or pair bonding forms are just as good, which they're not, because with religion, all the religions, it almost doesn't matter which one. They're all basically aimed at evolutionary stable strategies for their society that evolved in their culture, in their environment during, basically from 6,000 years on. You can look at Buddhism and Confucianism and
you're saying you're saying socialism and Marxism are the worst of the religions as far as the family structure goes. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Well, yeah, what their goal is, but you also have Marxism. Whenever they try to force it upon a society, since it's evolutionary state unstable, it's psychologically unstable, it's economically, politically unstable also. There's a whole system of series of instabilities, and we'll get into that later when we discuss the unified behavioral theory, how this stuff breaks down. So then if the goal is for to change the church, the priestly P, to be more accepting of everything, okay, if everything is good, well, then there is no good, better, and best. Everything's the same. So they just want to ameliorate and obliterate all standards. So the ultimate goal, if the father isn't raising the children, then the state is, then who's actually progressing children through the different Freudian life stages to adulthood? Well, then it's going to be the school system. So then you're making the school teachers the parents. So the ultimate goal of socialism is to replace the parent P. And again, since you're taking the school teachers come from the university system, you're training the university system in how to obliterate all 7 Ps and transform them. Then they go into the school system and they start raising kids to be socialist, spouses in common and children is the common is the catchphrase in Marxist anthropology. So that's what you're trying to raise kids, on, that it should not be a patriarchal society. Yeah, let's end it there and go back to the next one. So those are the 7 Ps and why they exist.
So you were discussing the press P when that video. We've got a video here discussing the UK's view on Russian propaganda with regards to what's happening recently. I'm going to play this so that we can both react to it live. You let me know if you want me to stop it at any point.
How much of this has the bony fingers of the Kremlin in the middle of it? How many of these accounts?
Bony fingers.
We know. I mean, last night there was yet another munitions factory, a business who sells
a business
that dual dual-use products, and
dual-use products.
the allegations they're sending weapons to Israel.
It's bonkers. They're not sending weapons to Israel. Bonkers.
It's nonsense. Arson attack against that. Police were attacked with hammers last night.
Hammers!
And we know from other incidents that some of these people have been Russian agents in the past. We also know, when you look around the modus operandi of, say, the Wagner mercenaries in Africa, they've got a pretty good playbook when it comes to overthrowing governments, destroying regimes, adding to coups and so on and so forth, creating instability. You know, they've been testing this out in countries across Africa for a long time. How much are they potentially?
Because you know, the Russians are famous for doing coups. Nobody else does coups, right, George?
Yeah, nobody else.
All right.
Actually doing that.
The British have never done that. God forbid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the British. That's all the UK does. Yeah.
The Queen is rolling over in her grave at the thought of like having orchestrated coups anywhere.
So for the second point first, about the potential foreign involvement in what's happened.
So we've only got 3 hours to talk about this.
Right, yeah, only got 3 hours.
Oh, jolly good.
It's very easy
Lovely.
to put the foreign involvement label on there, and lots of people are doing it without actually really understanding the detail and everything else. The complexity of what's going on and the complexity of the information operation that is being played is beyond these so-called far-right groups and everything else. There has to be something behind it. So I'll leave that.
Yeah, it's called people can see through your bullshit. That's what it's called. Something behind it.
There, if we take it to an extreme level, the Russians have got the 72nd Special Service Center, which is also known as GRU. And
you guys don't have Brigade 77, right? And the Americans don't have the Chupacabra or whatever it's called brigade.
54777. Now, GRU is the Russian First Directorate, the military intelligence. They're the organization that sent
say KGB, it's more scary.
To try and poison Sergei Skripal with Novichok. Now, this is a different department.
Try and poison, which was proven not to have happened and is also impossible because if you look at the way like that poison works. George, you want to comment on the Skripal case?
Oh, that one. Yeah, what was his
Novichok?
name?
Novichok and Skripal.
Right. I haven't looked at that in a long time, but I forget the guy.
Off the top of your memory, off the top of your head, like what do you remember about like what was the conclusion of that case? Not the headline news at the beginning, but like the conclusion. The conclusion was Novichok is like lethal. It can't leave you like slightly injured, and anybody else who was in contact with that bag would have also been dead. that is basically the short and long of it, or however the hell you say it in English.
Yeah, with those different assassinations, I mean, some people accuse the Western intelligence agencies of doing that to get rid of people that they no longer want to, the agents that they kind of flipped or compromised, and they don't want them, and they
the West does that. The West does that. Are you sure? Are you sure? Did your comedy scriptwriter tell you to say that? Anyway, let's continue with this drivel.
It's one of the older departments of the Russian intelligence machinery. In 2019, it celebrated its 100th anniversary. They have been integrated into everything that the Soviets did and the Russians have done.
Those Soviets!
But, more interestingly, externally, ever since the Soviet Union was first born. And therefore, the use of propaganda, the use of disinformation to try further
we can stop this.
Go on.
Yeah, they have to blame the fact that their mass migration policies are backfiring.
Are you a right-wing extremist? Are you a right-wing extremist?
Yeah, of course, every day. Well, not just on Sundays. I'm trying to be, over the course of the week too.
Like try to spread it out so that it's not focused.
Correct.
Go on.
So, yeah, the mass migration policies are failing. Again, if you want to go, we need to go back to the 7 Ps, because I introduced a framework where you can start understanding how one failure is covered up by another failure. With the singular framework, you can start explaining everything out of it. The West, not just the United States, but the UK, moved towards Marxism. They moved towards feminism. We no longer have an evolutionary stable society, meaning the birth rates are not, 2+ kids per couple.
It's this graphic basically.
Yeah, there's no longer any replacement rates, but yet they have a welfare state that promises everybody these vast pensions that now they can't afford because there's not enough people working to pay back the pensions. So then they start the mass migration of the third worlders who are still living under very primitive forms of government, but they're producing 4 or 5 kids per couple or 10 kids per couple or whatever. So they have evolutionary stable strategies and the West doesn't. So now they have to import these people, talk about is for democracy. So they're bringing people in from non-democratic countries. And if you're talking about Islam, we were talking about the DW video the other day. They're talking about how one right-wing extremist did kill 2 people. Well, okay, and that's bad. That's really bad. Of course, we would not do that. But the problem is the mass migration, the crime rates are so high, multiple people die every week or raped, robbed. The crime rate is through the roof. So they're concerned about, they're putting all their effort into the one guy that kills 2 people, then people that are responsible for crime, terrorism, all those trucks of peace that drive through the Christmas markets, that burn down the churches, and all the vandalism against churches. Well, they don't put any effort to stopping that.
What vandalism against churches? Have you been watching Russian propaganda, or did you see that on the Russian Telegram?
Yeah, all the churches in France and Belgium, of course, that routinely all of a sudden just have spontaneous combustion and start burning, like the Notre Dame, Sacre-Cœur.
Yeah, those churches. Okay.
Yeah. And in the UK, they're so fed up with the 2-tier system of justice because they can't pay for the unfunded liabilities for the generous welfare programs and the National Health Institute. They can't pay for any of these things. So now they're bringing in migrants to try to pay that off. But the migrants, because they're having so many kids per parent, per couple, we're actually putting much more strains on these systems. So it's actually going to bankrupt the West faster.
Don't you think that's by design?
Well, no, it's absolute and total incompetence. And that's why we're going through the...
You attributed it to incompetence at the end, though.
Yeah, well, if you look at the 3 groups that run society, the far left, the neoliberals, and the neoconservatives, that's basically the ruling coalition in both North America and in the UK. The far left has created this movement towards a socialist matriarchal system, and now we don't have we lost the nuclear family. We no longer have replacement rates to pay off the welfare system that the socialists enacted, the Great Society programs in the United States, or the different welfare societies you have in the UK or whatever. So now they're importing these people to try to cover that mistake. It's backfiring. They're accelerating the strain on the system. They're not paying for the strain on the system. So that's accelerating bankruptcy. So for those 2 groups, it's absolute incompetence. All right. The financiers at the top have also, during this same time frame, been exporting the jobs overseas to make money. So you not only have different groups in these societies that are working against each other. So they're doing what they're doing on purpose. So now the left is also trying to transform the West to a leftist a leftist form of government. So you have them bankrupting the system, the Cloward and Piven plan. You have them bankrupting the system as the financiers are moving jobs all overseas to lower, well, so they don't have to pay unions. So they're undercutting the whole Labor Party is for the working class because they're exporting jobs overseas to make money. So what are they going to do as the left is collapsing society with the Cloward and Piven plan? Well, at some point, they're just going to pull their money out and move it overseas and just let the whole system collapse. So it's not that the Great Reset is something that's being done necessarily on purpose by all the financiers as a monolith. They can't control what the left is doing. Now, you do have some in there that want to move towards the one world government, but we're not allowed, it's not safe to talk about them. Otherwise, you get Scott Ritter.
You get Scott Ritter.
So
Should we actually... We'll shift into that gear a little bit later. I want to take a little break. Thank everybody who is a patron, and also thank everybody who has bought me a coffee, and people who are interested in buying coffee or becoming a patron. Find the links in the description. And the reason that I want to do that is because every time I watch one of these YouTube videos with 100,000 subscribers, and they're like, oh, this video might be demonetized or slightly demonetized. Man, my whole channel is demonetized. Stop whining. So everybody who's here, if you see ads, don't watch them. Use ad block. But do check out the Patreon and buy me a coffee. All right. Yeah. Now, George, shall we finish that UK propaganda thing, or do you want to skip straight into the American propaganda thing?
Oh, whatever propaganda you want to go with next.
I like Russian propaganda.
The Soviet message. To try and create cracks in where they see as threat societies, and they see British society as a threatening society. They see the West as a threatening society. It is their job to try and find ways of creating discourse in society to do that.
What sort of things might...
How much do you think of what he's saying is projection, considering he's former senior military intelligence officer?
Yeah, it's 100% projection.
You want to get that, or is that not for you?
Oh yeah, hold on a second. It's
I'll just let this play.
They have been doing, and it's very difficult, of course, until we've had a sort of deeper look into the lot of this. And it's not necessarily our job to do it, but I think we should at least make this known publicly. That sometimes what you see has various origins, including origins of states who frankly want to see us at civil war.
Oh, states who frankly want to see us at civil war, and they've never said, those same states, that they want Russia in 17 republics, have they now?
What sort of things might they be doing?
Well, let's just go ahead and talk about that for a second. When I get into different versions of the 7P plan, especially how they use the university system to take over the other 6Ps,
we've discussed that. I might leave a link somewhere.
Yeah. So, we're going to be discussing a lot. So they took out the difference between men and women, the domain specific premise, and they've been going on the domain general premise, which is totally false. Steven Pinker's book, The Blank Slate 2002, if you want to know where I'm getting that from, and Tubin Kosmita's, their book, The Adapted Mind, plus David Buss, The Handbook of Modern Evolutionary Psychology. Anyway, it's a totally false premise, but in the macro social sciences, they never discuss, or they do autopsies on failed communist and Marxist experiments. So there's actually teaching false theories of human behavior in the university system is complete nonsense. It's itself is complete woke propaganda. So when you get into something like that, they can't say, well, we're repeating the same mistakes as all the other failed Marxist experiments. They can't go back and take responsibility because you're dealing with narcissistic personality disorders, basically, like we were talking about off screen last month. So narcissistic personality disordered people. They take no responsibility for anything. It's the opposite of Jocko Willink of taking extreme ownership. They take ownership of nothing. So
just
now
to clue people in, George and I were discussing how some of the traits of narcissistic behavior can be applied to U.S. foreign policy, basically over, the past 20, 30, 50 years maybe. And like the no accountability is basically what Lavrov calls non-agreement capable. That's how Lavrov refers to it in the geopolitical sense. Go on, George.
Yeah, so you're dealing with people that cannot take any responsibility whatsoever for themselves. So now they have to blame that. They have to blame others. So yeah, now instead of saying that, well, England and the United States is turning into another failed socialist experiment, they can't say that. So now they have to say, attributed to foreign influence is this, and no. We went over the Russian strategic plan 2 years ago now on this channel. We went over it in detail. At some point we'll probably, I still got the slide sets. We'll go over it again. All Russia needs to do, and China, is just sit back and let the West collapse on its own. Just like during the Reagan administration, all they had to do was sit back and watch the Soviet Union crumble. The United States was advancing its technology, 2 or 3 generations before the Russians could reverse engineer the technologies. So they were falling farther and farther behind, both in commercial civilian technology. I mean, people are still driving those Trabants and those Yugos that are, or whatever they were. There's a whole bunch of those cars that were built in designed in the 1930s, and in the 1990s they're still driving them. And then their military technology was falling farther and farther behind. Every time they would reverse engineer a product, the West would be 2 or 3 generations past it. So that's why Gorbachev ended socialism, because they had to go back to a market society because they were falling farther and farther and farther behind the West. So that's why they shifted back to a market economy. Yes, he would have liked to have kept the Soviet Union together, but once he started making a change in one thing, people wanted a complete separation. So you have that. But now that Russia's evolved out of that, well, the United States has been transitioning from a Christian conservative country to atheistic, secular, and then atheistic, if you want to go on those gradations, towards a welfare state. Now the United States, the West is starting to collapse. So now all they have to do is sit back and just watch the collapse happen. So the shoe's on the other foot now. In the UK,
I actually wanted to get into that kind of a little bit. So this is from Minimalism, Serbian meme page. Come on, do something. It's Gaza, basically, or Palestine, to Iran. And it's about that retaliation for what was going on. And now the question that I have for you is, do you think that the stock market collapse thing that happened on Monday was timed in expectation of the Iran retaliation, and then they could have said, oh, look, it's Iran's fault, and Iran just laid back and let them collapse by themselves and played their bluff, basically, or what's it called? Called their bluff. Oh,
I mean, I think the stock market in the United States was because they, if Kamala Harris becomes president, I think it's going to be such a disaster. I think the one percenters can't control the neoliberals and the far left. So they're going to start moving their money now. Well, and then of course, what does that say about it? They could say, well, Trump is going to win. The economy will rebound, right? Reforms will be made. The budgets will be cut, this, that, and the other thing. Things would get better, right? Well, no, that means they probably think the elections will be heavily influenced in favor of Kamala? I think that's what the message there is.
Yes, George. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Where's that propaganda video? I wanna see what else these Brits have to say before we get onto the.
Well, you really
stuff.
love the Brits.
Not that I love them.
It's
It's
started all of
See, and
It's
again,
that
let's just stop a second here, because you're controlling the military, because you got the military guy here. So that's the police P, meaning all gun carriers and intelligence community officials. And you got the press. So if you can control those two things, you're seeing two of the P's in action right here. Now they can't take responsibility. It's not because of their failed policies. It's not, they want to start deporting people, especially criminals or people that can't get jobs.
Listen, from what I heard, they released a bunch of actual hardcore criminals from jail, like people who committed murders and stuff, to make space in their jails for the internet criminals that they arrested for hate speech online. Which is why this is a comedy show, and nothing here we say is real or has anything to do with reality. It's just jokes, humor.
Yeah,
right, George?
They have to control the press P, which is, of course, all social media, with alternative media where citizens can go on and voice their own opinions. Well, if a bunch of people go on forums and talk about that, it starts to add up, and they have to censor it to control it, because they want to control, the press P. So just in this video, you can start saying, well, you can start applying the P model and what they're doing. Okay, if you wanted to add an eighth P, it would be projection. So yeah, I should add an eighth P
as the final P, like when it's all gone. Pete Tong. Some people might know the reference.
This was
we have to listen to this in the British accent so that we know it comes from an authoritative source. Do you understand, George? This is the way it has to be. All right, let's do it.
Going round that the perpetrator of the horrific attacks on those 3 children who lost their lives and the others who were severely injured was someone who'd come across in the boats.
Right.
And there was speculation about the individual's name. And it came out in a Telegram post that said...
That's another thing about this narratives. Like apparently the guy who actually killed the kids was a locally born Christian Somali immigrant, and he was from Wales. Like, correct me in the comments or something if I'm wrong. But the point is, and then there's Muslims out in the street who are like protecting their mosques from, like, the whole narrative is just nuts.
He should have been on an MI6 watch list. Now, I was reading through that, and the English was clunky, and then as soon as you get onto MI6 watch list,
because the Russian don't speak the good London, they speak very bad London in Russia.
That's MI5 that are on the watch list. This had come from somewhere probably outside the UK,
right, and then
that started it.
Yeah, we know that there was that Twitter account, Channel 3, I think it called itself. At one point, it sort of aped the moniker of Fox News, which started off as some sort of accounts with an IP address in Pakistan, registered to 2 individuals in, I think, Lithuania, which used to put like Russian drag racing up there, and now all of a sudden sort of pretends it is a proper news channel with branding and so on and so forth. It clearly isn't.
We don't pretend we're a proper news channel. We know we're the worst comedy channel on YouTube.
That is one element.
She's not talking about us, George. Don't worry about it.
This is more than likely something emanating probably from Russia.
And what they don't do is they're not going in and directing everything. They don't have a team that's sitting there saying, right, we're going to create a riot here and we're going to do this there and that's going to... What they're sitting there doing is they'll throw... You've got a still pond, they'll throw a pebble in the pond and watch the ripples. And then when they see the ripples coming in, they'll go, that ripple has caused some anxiety there, and therefore they'll take a snippet of the what's in there and they'll amplify that. And this is where the bot farms come in.
Right.
Well, thank you, Mr. What was his name? Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Thank you for laying out how your intelligence operations work in other countries and how you managed to watch ripples in protests and other discord that you sow. George, comment? You're going to add another P, huh? Projection.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got that exactly right. It's projection again. They just explain exactly what they do.
Yeah, it's just comedy. It just came to mind. You wanted to discuss Scott Ritter statement following FBI raid on his home. Scott Ritter came out. He was wearing this shirt, and this shirt is from this movie with Inigo Montoya.
I do not mean to pry, but you don't by any chance happen to have 6 fingers on your right hand?
Do you always begin conversations this way?
With that intro, let's have a look at what Ritter has to say.
I'm not in violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. I have not done anything that would do it, and hopefully by executing the search warrant and taking the materials that they did, they will rapidly reach that conclusion. I will say that things like this have a chilling effect on free speech. There's no doubt that I'm being targeted because of statements I've made about U.S. policy in Ukraine. I'm being targeted because I have made an effort to try and improve relations between the United States and Russia, to try to bring about arms control, to bring about peace. Apparently somebody in the U.S. government takes umbrage at this, so they executed a search warrant. The FBI...
All right, I think we got enough from Ritter there. George, other than fixing your camera, is your camera going to fall? Are you good?
Yeah. I'm just trying to adjust the clarity a little bit.
It's good. So we got Ritter there, and then we've got Ritter from the day before.
Well, I think we've gotten to the point where it's gone beyond
on Judge Napolitano.
Perverted parody. When the Israelis jail 9 soldiers for raping Palestinian prisoners, and then Israeli citizens rise up and say that the Talmud interpretation of a Jewish law says it's not a crime to rape non-Jews and that these men should be freed. Not only that, then they sent hundreds of people to the Palestinian prisons demanding to be allowed in so they can rape the Palestinian prisoners because they're permitted to under Jewish law. This led to a near...
Okay, that was Ritter joking, obviously, about stuff that he heard in some bus stop somewhere. So YouTube automatic filter, please don't automatically filter this video. George, comment?
Apparently that is very accepted among the Bedouin cultures of that area.
I don't think he's talking about Bedouins, man. I don't think he's talking about...
You get into... It has evolved from the Bedouin cultures of 5,000 years ago, and it's still in the Talmud today, or in other religious texts, I should say. It's in religious texts of the different religions in that region. It seems to be a common theme.
Some religion somewhere there.
The common theme among the people in that region is they grew, as 6,000 years ago they evolved in a Bedouin society.
So
I mean, they're not Bedouins now, but it's a Bedouin culture, yes.
If you believe in this history and the stories, did you know, George, that you can use Coca-Cola to put out a fire? I came across this, and I think this is worth sharing with the subscribers, including you. Look at this guy, amateur. He's trying to use water to put out a fire. Watch this. Watch this guy who walks up. Where is he? Oh, do I not have the whole video? I don't have the whole video. Oh, damn it. It didn't save the whole video. In any case, guy walks up with a half bottle of Coca-Cola and fizzes it up and starts spraying it on the fire, and the carbonated carbon inside the coke, as it releases, it becomes carbon dioxide and extinguishes the fire by gas. And I was just like, wow. I'm sorry I don't have the full video. But yeah, find me on Instagram and you'll get the full video maybe.
Yeah, go get the full video. I'll wait.
George, shall we get back to the 7 Ps? Or do you want to do more other light-hearted stuff? Did you see that Turk at the Olympics? We've covered the Turk at the Olympics. The guy who showed up and was... There was a guy who showed up who was like in his 50s. He's a smoker, and like he like started shooting like a year ago or something, and he got silver. Like he came totally casually, no gear, no nothing, hand in his pocket. He shot, and like the theory is that he's a retired agent. Also, shout out to Flores and Floresberg. Because Floresberg, I think Teflon Musk is copying your idea of satire news. Also, Boeing wants to hire this guy. This is just a joke, like everything else on this show. Speaking of, shall we get the video? There's a little cartoon video of the Turkish guy. George, you're gonna love this. Watch. Oh, that's going to get me a strike. You have to do it for your country. Remember, keep a low profile. And that's the guy. It's beautiful. Okay, but seriously speaking, George, I can see on your face you're not amused. Can I put the slides back up? That's what matters. Have you got a second page to this? You have a second page to this.
Yeah, I mean, just go up to the top, because the top is just first page. Just go to the top.
I thought you wanted to like have this in there. Anyway, go.
Well, I mean, it's not just that the 7 Ps exist. It's that each one of these papers explains the 7 Ps to explain certain current phenomenon. So it's not just, remember, professors, prosecutors, police, press, priests, and parents. It's not just to remember those 7 things. It's how they're shaping society. What is a Christian capitalist society, and what is the patriarchy? You're making the connections between family structure and government form. And that, they came up in the comment section because people didn't really understand what I was talking about. And please just put the paper back up there, and let's just go over that first paragraph, because it's and Engels, the family, the origin of the family, private property, and the state is where he talks about the Christian aristocracy is a big extended family version of the patriarchal family, and you have to switch that over to atheism and socialism so you can return society back to a matriarchal system. So yes, under socialism, a single parent mother is the ideal form of government, and everything needs not just a husband needs to support her. The whole state is to support her. So you're changing the whole government system to raise single mother families. That's what you're changing the system. So now we're caught in this. We're caught in the transition phase where the support in the West is just the gradual support of welfare mothers and weakening the family structure. Well, now, I think the working class, men in general, know that when you go to divorce court, no matter how egregious a mother may be, she gets the kids anyway. And then, the child support and the alimony payments and everything like that is so skewed away from men towards women that now there's a tremendous disincentive to get married. Well, that part is by design. When people vote for it, they don't realize what it is that they're voting for. So once people realize in this 7P plan what it is they're actually voting for, they'll know, oh, it's not just we want to just help people. No, we're transitioning society away from one thing to the other. If you look at social media, back in the old days, it used to be, the Leave It to Beaver program of you had the family with the two children, and everybody was trying to be good and doing anything bad. Cheating in school was bad, or stealing was bad, or little thefts. Everything was bad. It was trying to create an ideal family form. The father shouldn't be yelling at the mother. The mother shouldn't be yelling at the father. Should be played down. Now, you have things like you have shows like The Modern Family, where it's supposed to be funny, but they're trying to make the abnormal normal. And why are they trying to do that? Well, they're trying to say that there is no ideal, or socialism will come in and fix all these problems. Of course, socialism fails wherever it goes. It increases the problem. It doesn't decrease the problem. So you should go back the other way, but you can't go back the other way because you can vote yourself into socialism. You can't vote yourself out of socialism. Look at Venezuela.
What are you trying to say? Didn't they just have an election that was fair and monitored?
Yeah. Oh,
it was,
and the election in 2020 was just totally above board.
Exactly.
And obviously the stock market crashed here because, well, it looks like Kamala is going to be the ordained victor. So we'll see.
The ordained victor?
Yeah. We'll see if it's too big to be influenced.
I have a meme here that I shared on the Telegram. Daily reminder, tell your bro or sis that you love them. Don't forget to do that, everyone. Also, I wanted to get your take on the U.S. making it illegal for BRICS to have a swift parallel.
Yeah, it really is desperate to keep Western Europe as okay, we went over this in the old 5P plan PowerPoint slide set, did like 2 years ago now, and then the 6P Russo-centric 6P plan, so people can understand what geostrategic theories are all about. The West is really desperate to keep its first island chain allies in the Pacific, and they're really desperate to keep Western Europe in their alliances. And yes, Russia's selling Germany cheap Russian gas and all the minerals that they need to feed their industries would shift Germany into the Russian sphere of influence. That means they would be less dependent upon Washington and London. And so, yes, all of these things about starting the war in Donbass to cut natural gas supplies, put other commodity restrictions on Russia. That part was all by design. Is to separate the industrial powerhouse of, well, Germany, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Austria, and northern Italy, is to keep it tied to Washington and London, not towards an alliance between Berlin, Moscow, and Beijing. It's all about the global political center of gravity. So that's why they're doing that. What's keeping that from occurring is lack of a common trading currency. So that's the big problem. But since the Maidan Revolution and the increased pressure in the Donbass, and then the failure of the Minsk Accords, which is done on purpose, Well, now
You
Russia
Russian
and China-
conspiracy theorist. You
Yeah.
Russian propaganda conspiracy theorist. Merkel never said that.
Right. Well,
Right?
it's reported. According to Russian propaganda, she said it. So that must have been a deep fake.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's a time traveling deep fake. Like before they invented deep fakes, they went back in time.
Yeah, it went back. They're very good at what they do.
Listen, like that head of military intelligence said, that they are good at what they do, and they have 100 years of experience. So the past 100 years is suspect to like time traveling Russian propaganda. That's what he just said.
They have amazing skills.
We're reaching the 1 hour mark. George, do you want to do that second page in another hour, or do you wanna not cover it at all, or did we cover what's on the second page?
No, we didn't cover anything at all. We just went over what the 7 Ps were, not how they play out.
All right, excellent.
We need to go over the document. We talked about everything about the document. Yeah.
All right. So then let's call this the first recording. Let me find the music. Where is the music? There we go. George, thank you for stopping by. Everybody else, thank you for sticking around to the end. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me put up... Actually, no. We'll leave it for the next one. All right, everyone. See you later. George, say bye.
Bye.